El aire en la habitación superior era denso, no solo por el aroma a lana sin lavar o el calor rancio de un manantial de Jerusalén, sino por un silencio palpable y vibrante que erizaba la piel de los brazos. ¿Conoces ese silencio, verdad? Ese silencio de la espera cuando te quedas sin palabras, cuando sientes que tus oraciones chocan contra un techo de plomo y las promesas a las que te aferrabas con fervor parecen escurrirse entre tus dedos como arena seca del desierto. Quizás lo hayas sentido últimamente, ese vacío en el centro del pecho donde antes ardía tu pasión, preguntándote si Dios simplemente se ha callado, si tu propia alma ha perdido su vibración. Si buscas un camino de regreso al fuego, o simplemente necesitas saber que tu lucha actual es el preludio de algo cataclísmico en el espíritu, quédate conmigo, porque hoy vamos a desvelar las capas de la historia para descubrir por qué los eventos del capítulo 2 de los Hechos nunca fueron una simple nota histórica, sino una realidad permanente y viva para tu vida ahora mismo. Considera unirte a este viaje mientras exploramos el misterio de Pentecostés, pues es aquí donde encontramos la clave de todo lo que has estado buscando. Imagínate allí, acurrucado con los discípulos. Estaban aterrorizados. Habían visto el horizonte de su mundo derrumbarse cuando su maestro fue llevado, e incluso después de la resurrección, permanecieron en un estado de animación suspendida. Eran hombres y mujeres atrapados entre los ecos de un pasado que no podían replicar y un futuro que no podían comprender. Estaban esperando. Ese es el secreto, ¿no? Esperar es quizás la disciplina espiritual más difícil porque requiere la muerte de nuestro propio tiempo. Permanecieron en aquella habitación alta de Jerusalén, la ciudad que se había convertido en un cementerio para sus esperanzas, pero a la vez en la cuna de su destino. El ruido de la calle era un zumbido sordo y rítmico de comercio y fervor religioso, completamente ajeno al hecho de que el cielo se asomaba, esperando el momento preciso para traspasar la barrera entre lo divino y lo terrenal. De repente, el silencio se rompió. No fue una sugerencia cortés ni un suave susurro. Llegó con la violencia de un vendaval, un sonido como el de un viento impetuoso y poderoso que llenó toda la casa. Ahora, intenten visualizarlo. No era una brisa que sacudía las contraventanas. Era un desplazamiento cósmico del aire, un cambio atmosférico que señalaba que los cielos ya no estaban cerrados. Este fue el preludio auditivo de una invasión de gracia. El misterio reside en el momento. ¿Por qué entonces? ¿Por qué allí? ¿Por qué a esas personas en particular? Era el día de Pentecostés, una celebración de la cosecha, una fiesta para honrar la provisión de Dios. Pero había una cosecha más profunda y oculta. Los discípulos eran la primera cosecha de una nueva era, y el fuego que descendió no era una fuerza destructiva, sino un agente transformador. Mientras el viento rugía, algo más sucedió. Aparecieron lenguas de fuego que se posaron sobre cada uno de ellos. No una llama colectiva, sino encuentros individuales y personales con el resplandor divino. Aquí es donde la mayoría de la gente se equivoca. Buscan el viento, buscan el fuego en el cielo, pero olvidan que el fuego se posó sobre las personas. Fue un bautismo de realidad. El fuego no se quedó en el techo, marcó a los individuos. Fue la manifestación física del Espíritu Santo, que pasó de la verdad abstracta de una doctrina a la médula viva de sus huesos. ¿Pueden imaginar la sensación? El calor, la intensidad, la claridad repentina que disipó su confusión. Fue una purificación de su trauma, una eliminación de sus miedos y el encendido de un propósito que, con el tiempo, transformaría su mundo por completo. Pero analicemos la situación más a fondo. ¿Por qué hablaban en otras lenguas? ¿Por qué la reacción inmediata a esta infusión del Espíritu fue un cambio de idioma? Pensemos en la frustración de la condición humana. Estamos aislados por nuestras limitaciones, por los límites de nuestra propia percepción y por las barreras de nuestro ego. El lenguaje es la principal barrera, una herramienta que usamos para definir nuestro grupo y excluir al otro. Cuando el Espíritu descendió, rompió esas barreras. Les dio la capacidad de hablar los idiomas de los demás, de salvar la brecha entre la intención divina y la experiencia humana. Fue una inversión del caos de Babel, donde la humanidad se fragmentó en el orgullo, ahora se reunía en el fuego de la humildad y el poder. Esto nos revela algo profundo sobre tu propia vida. La confusión que sientes, la incapacidad de expresar la profundidad de tu anhelo a Dios, no es un muro. Es un espacio diseñado para que el Espíritu lo llene. Cuando no encuentras las palabras, cuando tus oraciones son solo suspiros inconexos, es precisamente ahí donde el Espíritu comienza a interceder con gemidos demasiado profundos para ser articulados. La multitud reunida afuera, desconcertada, oían sus propios idiomas hablados por galileos, hombres que no tenían por qué conocer los dialectos de la diáspora. Estaban hipnotizados, confundidos y escépticos. Algunos se burlaban, afirmando que los discípulos estaban borrachos. Y esta, amigo mío, es una verdad que debes tener presente. Cuando eres verdaderamente tocado por el fuego del Espíritu, cuando operas en una dimensión que el mundo no puede explicar, te llamarán loco, te etiquetarán, te descartarán o intentarán racionalizar tu transformación. Que lo hagan. La opinión del mundo es un pequeño precio a pagar por la aprobación de los cielos. Pedro, el hombre que había negado al Maestro apenas unas semanas antes, se puso de pie. La transformación era completa. El cobarde que se había marchitado bajo la mirada de una sirvienta había desaparecido. En su lugar se alzó un heraldo del reino, cuya voz resonaba con una autoridad que no le pertenecía. Habló la verdad, se abrió paso entre el ruido y los dirigió de nuevo a lo único que importaba: la restauración del alma a través del Cristo vivo. Consideremos las consecuencias. 3,000 personas se unieron ese día. Pero el milagro no fue solo la estadística. El milagro fue el cambio en la comunidad. Vendieron sus posesiones, compartieron el pan, vivieron con un corazón alegre y sincero. Ya no eran un conjunto de individuos que intentaban sobrevivir. Eran un solo cuerpo. Moved by a singular heartbeat. This is the truth about Pentecost that is often ignored. It was never used about a singular, flash event of speaking in tongues. It was about the radical reorganization of how human beings related to one another. Pentecost is the act of individualism in the face of a greater, divine unity. When the Spirit takes hold, your personal ambitions, your petty grievances, and your rigid boundaries begin to melt away, replaced by a profound sense of belonging to a larger, eternal arc of history. Think about your current situation. You have been waiting. You have been seeking. You have been feeling the weight of the silence. Perhaps you have been looking for a sign in the sky or a dramatic change in your circumstances. But notice what the text says. They were in one place, they were in one accord, and they were in a state of expectant stillness. The Spirit did not descend on those who were busy chasing solutions. It descended on those who were positioned to receive it, even if they didn't know what they were waiting for. Is your life positioned that way today? Are you still, or is your air cluttered with the noise of your own plans and the chatter of your anxieties? The fear is not something you drag down from the heavens with your effort. The fear is something you prepare for by clearing the space in your soul. There is a mystery in the persistence of this fear. We say the Pentecost happened 2,000 years ago, but the Bible speaks of the Holy Spirit as the earnest of our inheritance, the guarantee that the story is not finished. If the Spirit is the same yesterday, today, and forever, then the fear that rested on the heads of the disciples is still burning in the dimension of the Spirit, waiting to be drawn down into the reality of your current day. Why does it feel so distant for so many? Perhaps because we have become comfortable with a religion of information, a fight that is intellectualized and sanitized, stripped of its wind and its air. We want the comfort of the promises without the disruption of the presence. But you cannot have the fear without the burning. You cannot have the transformation without the surrender. Consider the metaphor of the threshing floor. The fear of Pentecost was a winnowing process. It separated the chaff of the disciples, all the identities from the wheat of their new purpose. If you feel like your life is being winnowed, if you feel like the things you once relied upon are being stripped away, do not be afraid. That is the wind of the Spirit creating a vacuum, making room for a greater harvest. You are being prepared for a new language, a new way of interacting with the divine that does not rely on the limitations of your past. The mystery of the Holy Spirit is that it knows you better than you know yourself. It knows the secret places where you have hidden your pain, your regrets, and your unspoken dreams. He is the one who goes into those dark corners, not to shame you, but to illuminate them with that summer Pentecostal flame. As we linger here in the reflection of this event, think about the faces of those who were in that upper room. They were not sages. They were common people, flawed and broken, yet they were the vessels chosen for the greatest fear the world has ever known. The soul gives you pause. You do not need to be refined, educated, or perfect to host the presence of God. You only need to be available. Can you let go of the need to control the outcome of your life? Can you allow the silence to broaden, even when it feels like nothing is happening? The tension you feel is the tension of the precursor. It is the drawing back of the bowstring before the arrow is released. Remember the words of the prophet. Do not despise the day off. Small beginnings. Your current struggle, your current season of waiting, is a seed. It is a hidden, subterranean work that is preparing you for the fire. Many people give up use before the wind picks up. They lose it because they equate the quiet with the absence of God. But the quiet is where the atmosphere is stabilized. The quiet is where the Spirit gathers the force of the heavens to change the trajectory of your life. Do not break the silence with your own shouting. What? Remain in the room. Let the expectation build until it becomes a prayer that you cannot even formulate. That is when the wind will blow. That is when the fire will find its landing place. What if the reason you have felt stagnant is because you have been trying to ignite the fire with your own matches? What if you have been trying to manufacture the feeling of the Spirit rather than yielding to the presence of the Spirit? The Pentecost was not an achievement. It was a gift. It was a divine intrusion. You do not earn the fire. You simply position your heart to be a recipient of it. Start today by releasing the grip you have on your timeline. Tell the Creator that you are done with your own designs. Admit that you are tired of the exhaustion that comes from living without the rest of heaven. This is the beginning of the pivot. This is a moment where your narrative shifts from a story of struggle to a story of manifestation. Consider the ripple effect of those who were filled. They went out and changed the culture. They challenged the empires. They redefined what it meant to be human. When you allow the fire to settle on your life, your influence will change. You will speak differently. You will handle conflict differently. You will find that you have a reserve of peace that the world cannot understand, and a reservoir of care that defies the odds. This is the inheritance of the Pentecost. It is not meant to be a memory. It is meant to be a model of existence. It is the difference between a life lived in the shadows and a life illuminated by the light of the eternal. As you reflect on this, look around your own life. Where do you need a fresh wind? Where do you need the barriers of your own understanding burned away? Do not limit the Spirit to what you have seen before. The Pentecost was a new thing, a thing that had not been seen in the history of the world. God is a creator of new things. He is not constrained by the patterns of your past. If you feel like your fight has become a routine, a cycle of rituals that no longer satisfy the hunger of your soul, then know that you are at a crossroads. The fire is available to those who have the courage to ask for it, to work for it, and to endure the transformation that comes with it. There is a weight to this conversation that is hard to articulate. It is a weight of glory. It is a realization that the same power that raised the Master from the grave, the same power that shook the foundational stones of Jerusalem, is a power that resides within the believer. We have become accustomed to living far below our potential, accepting a life of mediocrity because we are afraid of the intensity of the divine. But fire is meant to burn. It is meant to consume the waste and warm the cold. It is meant to light the way. If you are ready for that, if you are willing to let the old version of yourself be refined, then you are ready for the Pentecost to happen in your heart. Think about the relationship between the wind and the fire. The wind provided the oxygen. The fire provided the air. In your life, the Spirit provides the movement and the passion, but you must provide the fuel. Your yielding, your obedience, your consistent turning toward the light. That is the fuel. Do not be discouraged if you don't feel the fire immediately. The ignition is often preceded by the smoke. The smoke is a cleansing, the realization of what needs to be removed. Trust the process. The one who started his work in you is faster to complete it, and his timing is always perfect. He is not slow, as some account slowness, but he is precise. It was for the perfect alignment of your heart and the perfect opening of the heaven. As we near the end of this reflection, I want you to sit with the thought of the upper room one last time. Feel the intensity of that moment, the collective breath held, the sudden roar of the wind, the brilliance of the light. Now, bring that back to your own space. Wherever you are, whatever you are doing, realize that you are in a room of potential. The Spirit is not locked in a temple in the past. He is omnipresent, waiting on you. The mystery of the Pentecost is that it is an invitation. It is an open door that you have been standing in front of, perhaps not realizing that you are to the step through. You are not alone in this search. There are many others who are tired of the noise, tired of the surface level answers, and hungry for the depth, unquenchable fear of the living God. Connect with this movement of fight by sharing your own journey, by engaging with those who are also seeking the deeper truths of the Word, and by committing to the process of spiritual growth that we are building here together. There is strength in the collective, used as there was in that upper room. Join us, subscribe, and let us walk this path together. holding the light for one another as we wait for the wind to blow again. The truth is, the story of Acts is not a finished book. It is a living document, and you are currently writing your chapter. What will it contain? Will it be a story of a life that stood in the shallows, or will it be a story of a life that dared to stand in the fire? The choice is yours, but the power is His. As you step forward into your day, carry this mystery with you. The fire has not gone out. It has merely been waiting for a heart to open and knock to receive it. Might you find that openness? Might you find that presence? And might your life be forever marked by the wind and the flame of the Pentecost? Your transformation is not an event. It is a way of life. Keep waiting, keep seeking, and keep the doors of your heart unlocked. For the Spirit moves in ways we cannot predict, but the fruit of His presence is always, without exception, life beyond anything you could have imagined. The mystery of the Pentecost is that it removes the fear of the unknown. When you are the fire, you do not need a map, because the fire is the light you walk by. You do not need to know where the path leads, because you know who is leading you. This is the ultimate freedom, the freedom to be fully, completely, and unapologetically alive in the presence of the Creator. Do not settle for anything less. The world is full of adding embers and artificial lights, but there is only one source of the true fire. Seek it, hold it, and let it burn through everything that is not of the truth. Your journey is just beginning, and the best parts of your story are still being written in the embers of the grass that followed that day in Jerusalem. Carry the spark, for you were born to be a light in a dark place, and the fire you host is the only thing that will ever truly satisfy the longing of your soul. Do not look back at the room you left behind. Look forward to the heroism that the Spirit is revealing. You are ready. The wind is rising. The flame is waiting. Step into it today, and watch how your life begins to burn with a purpose that transcends time and space. The promise of the Pentecost is for you, today, in this very moment. Trust Him with the details, and watch what happens when you finally stop trying to control the wind and start allowing it to carry you home. If this message resonated with the